Hey, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm just grabbing something. Hope you all are doing good on this morning. As you can clearly tell, I have not had water or tea, hence the neoliberal-esque cup. I wanted to, God, okay. Clearly I'm awake, right? So I wanted to actually do a video on a couple of things, and I've been a little inundated the past couple of days. But anyway, I wanted to do a video on two things that happened in the past 4, 5 days. Sorry, I look like shit. It's not even 8. But so, okay. The first one is of Liz Cheney. I think that's how you say her name. Who went on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd to talk about how Democratic leaders are reacting to Ilhan Omar's comments through the resolution that was passed last week in the House. And she is actually one of the, I think, 23 Republicans that voted against the resolution, so to speak. And I wanted to share the clip of her doing so to just talk about it, because I think there is some contention, more or less, about how there's contention over Ilhan Omar's comments on primarily the neoliberal side. I am obviously not a neoliberal. I don't consider myself one. But I wanted to share her comments and talk about them because I actually think that there's some interesting truth that comes out in them. So let me pull up the clip and...
Joining me now.
Oh, okay, hold on. I wanted to actually share my screen so you can see it. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right.
Joining me now is the chair of the House Republican Conference, Liz Cheney of Wyoming. Congresswoman Cheney, welcome back to the press.
Thank you, Todd. Great to be back.
I want to start with what happened in the House this week, because it was a bit of a surprise. You voted against this broad resolution, and while your criticism of the resolution, I totally understand, but you were in the minority in your party. Did your fellow House Republicans make a mistake by voting with the Democrats on this resolution?
No, look, I think that there were two ways we could have gone. Some of the people in our conference clearly looked at it and said there's nothing objectionable in the resolution. My statement made clear that was my view as well. But I decided to vote against it because I think it was really clearly an effort to actually protect Ilhan Omar, to cover up her bigotry and anti-Semitism by refusing to name her. The Democrats have yet to take any action to remove her from her committee. And they've got a real problem. I mean, the extent to which they are now abiding by anti-Semitism, enabling anti-Semitism in their party is something we watch them struggle with, but something that's very dangerous for the country. So I'm hopeful that they will be able to stand up and do the right thing on this.
I am curious. There was a bit of criticism. Politico noted their Republican sources were quite peeved at Cheney, referring to you, to say the least. The thinking among most top Republicans is this: when you're part of a leadership team, you stick together, period. Criticism being, since you're a member of leadership, that you should have spoken with one voice.
Well, look, I think that, you know how the Hill works. There are always those anonymous sources who are out there sniping. But I think the important thing for us to be focused on and to remember, the Democrats have been in charge now for about 2.5 months in the House. And in that time, they've become the party of anti-Semitism, the party of infanticide, the party of socialism. They've passed legislation that's violated the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. It's really time for the Democrats, the leadership in that party, to stop it, to stand up and to act worthy, frankly, of the trust the American people have placed in them. It's crucial for the nation.
I want to unpack a couple things you just said there. First, on the issue of, you said you think Congressman Omar should lose her committee assignments. You led the fight to get Congressman Steve King, Republican, to have him stripped of his committee assignment. Let me ask you this. Why should congressional leaders do that? If the voters are going to send these folks, The voters in Western Iowa know Steve King, for better or for worse. And the voters in Minnesota knew her comments were very, very much well publicized. If they send them there, should congressional leaders really be stripping, not allowing them on committees?
Yeah, I think that the point is voters send them there. Nobody is saying we're going to expel them. We respect the decision the voters have made. But there are certain things that shouldn't be part of our public discourse. White supremacy is one of those. And anti-Semitism, the history in terms of what happens when you don't stand up to the evil, the history in terms of how quickly words turn into something much more horrible when it comes to anti-Semitism. As a nation, we must at all times stand up to it. And the kind of anti-Semitism that you're seeing now from Ilhan Omar and that has been supported by her colleagues is a kind of anti-Semitism that really has the ability to creep in and become normalized in our discourse. And we have an absolute obligation not to let that happen.
Well, there's actually
I wanted to say one thing. Ilhan Omar's comments are not anti-Semitic. Repeat after me. Her comments are not anti-Semitic. I mean, I don't know how long I have to say that, but I wanted to say her comments are not anti-Semitic.
Anti-Semitism that has creeped into our discourse. So look at George Soros, okay? The Republican and conservative attacks on George Soros over the years. In fact, Kevin McCarthy had to pull one tweet that implied that he was essentially trying to buy this or buy that. That's gotten mainstreamed in ways for years, to the point where George Soros had some guy was trying to pipe bomb him. This whataboutism. Can I just say it, Congresswoman? This whataboutism, where everybody tries to point to the other side.
Chuck.
And it's getting
the whataboutism absolutely should not go on. And everyone, including Leader McCarthy, has stood up absolutely firmly to condemn anti-Semitism. The thing that people need to be focused on here, though, is that the Democrats in the House of Representatives and even some of the Democrats themselves are completely frustrated with the fact that the leadership they are protecting her. This isn't just being silent. They are protecting her by failing to put a resolution on the floor that names her and that strips her of her committee assignment. Instead, they put a resolution on the floor which she then went out and said, this is a tremendous victory for me. Now, if we are not going to be in a position where you say the kind of language that she has said again and again and again is absolutely unacceptable and has no place in our discourse, then those people who won't condemn it are enabling it.
There was some concern by singling her out. You only make her a target, and they pointed to that West Virginia Republican Party flyer.
Chuck, I'm sorry, but
my point is we are getting.
You can describe it that way, Chuck. You can describe it that way, but you're wrong.
Though,
you can describe it that way, but you're wrong. When you have a situation in this country and around the world where we have seen a global rise in anti-Semitic attacks, when we have had the kinds of attacks that you had on the synagogue here in the United States recently, that is a moment when you absolutely
a motive on the right. That guy was motivated by right-wing fringe ideology.
Anti-Semitic, right? Anti-Semitic, no matter where it comes from, is wrong.
All right, let's me stop sharing and show you a clip of what read to you what Ilhan Omar said. While I find it, hold on. I'm very prepared, apparently. All right. Let's see. All right. Okay, so I think her first one was, it's all about the Benjamins, baby, in regards to... Yeah, okay. So let me share again, just so you can see what I'm looking at. Okay, so what we're looking at is an article from Politico that was published, it looks, on February 10th, so well over a month ago. But it was regards to her first comments that I started to talk about relating to a post on Twitter by Glenn Greenwald. And I'm reading here directly. In a response to Greenwald's post, Omar tweeted, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," followed by a music emoji which suggested that Money was calling the tune for McCarthy. When asked to explain where the money she was referring to came from, Omar tweeted, "AIPAC." All right. Her point is that these politicians are bought out by AIPAC. Tell me how that is anti-Semitic. I'll wait. All right, that's not anti-Semitic. Now, let me show you a comment made by Benjamin Netanyahu this week that is anti-Semitic. I'm probably going to spell wrong in this Google search. I'm guessing. Excuse me. Okay. So, God, my computer sucks. So, all right, let me share my screen again because apparently I'm just the world of sharing today. Okay. Did I share that? Jeez, what happened? Okay, I'm there. All right. So, nah, God, I'm not interested. Okay. So, let me close that. So this article is titled "Netanyahu Downplays Arab Citizens, Saying Israel is the State of the Jewish People Alone." When you are the leader of a country, you represent everyone in that country. Newsflash, Arab individuals can be Jewish. But regardless, if they live in your country, you represent them, whether they're Jewish or not. So maybe his comments aren't directly anti-Semitic, but they're pretty bigoted. You can't be the leader of a country and say, "We represent the Jewish people alone." But, so let's say, show you exactly what he said. So what his comments are, or were, is saying Israel is a Jewish democratic state. He said, "This means that it is the national state of the Jewish people alone. Of course, it respects the individual rights of all its citizens, Jews and non-Jews alike, but it is the national state not of all its citizens, but only of the Jewish people. Now, let me show you this. Zionism. Have you heard of it? Zionism is the ethnic national movement of the Jewish people that supports the reestablishment of a Jewish homeland in the territory defined as the historic land of Israel, roughly corresponding to Canaan, the Holy Land, and the region of Palestine. I mean, I could read on, but I won't. So, all right. So what Netanyahu is actually saying is, I don't support all my people. I believe in the Zionist state of Israel, as defined by Zionism. And AIPAC, and even NORPAC, which is another pro-Israel pac, support this type of thinking when it comes to the state of Israel. They support Jews, and I'm totally cool with supporting Jews. I believe in supporting them, but not to the detriment of other minorities in a community, or not to the detriment of free speech, as we are seeing with this BDS movement. And that's what is actually frightening. We don't want to limit free speech. We want people to be able to say and do what they want. But having these politicians condemn Omar over comments that are not anti-Semitic just because they take money from AIPAC or have been a speaker on behalf of AIPAC shows exactly where their loyalties lie. They lie with the anti-free speech movement, the anti-BDS movement, and they lie with the pro-Israel Zionist movement that would erase Muslims and Arab people from the earth. So them condemning Ilhan Omar for comments that are not anti-Semitic is actually anti-Semitic. Well, no, it's not anti-Semitic. It's anti-Muslim. It's anti-human rights. It's anti-free speech. That really should be the end of that conversation. Okay. So that's that. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that I consider myself a democratic socialist. And one of the, I would say, probably most famous democratic socialists in the country is actually, as we know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, in previous videos, I've spoken about the weaponization of identity politics as I see it. And I think that there is a weaponization of identity politics. We see it with Ilhan Omar, for instance. We see it clear as day with her anti-Semitic comments. They're not anti-Semitic, obviously. But nonetheless, we persist, right? Sorry, just wanted to check my phone for a second. So anyway, back to Alexandria. She was recently, this past weekend, she was at South by Southwest, and she actually spoke about something that I really wanted to talk about. Brianna Joy Gray? Is it Gray? God. I want to make sure I get her name right before I say it again. Yeah, okay. Brianna Joy Gray, who is I think, what is it? She's a senior reporter at The Intercept, and other locations. But either way, she's associated with The Intercept, and the left loves The Intercept. So I'm going to talk about The Intercept primarily. But, stop blowing up phone. Okay. So at South by Southwest, she actually spoke with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about how the left thinks about identity politics and democratic socialism. And I wanted to share Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's answer because I think that this is a lot of the things that I've been called out for. And I just think that her answer really, really is important for people on the left to see and understand, because she's able to tie the two together in a way that actually doesn't offend either side, which is kind of great. So let me share my screen so you can see this clip. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play.
So I think as controversial as debated rather as the definition of democratic socialism, I think is probably also the definition of identity politics. And in this last few minutes, I really do want to get to this because you did an interview with Glenn Greenwald for The Intercept last summer, in which you gave perhaps the most eloquent description of identity politics that I've ever heard, as someone who is 100% on the identity politics beat. So I want to, if we can, play a short part of that clip.
At the end of the day, I'm a candidate that doesn't take corporate money, that champions Medicare for all, a federal jobs guarantee, the abolishment of ICE, and a Green New Deal. But I approach those issues with the lenses of the community that I live in. And that is not as easy to say as identity politics, but I think it's something that our constituents understand on a very deep level.
So what I love about that definition, and there was a lot before, but I would rather you talk about it here live than go back to a year-old clip, is that you, I think, united two kind of different definitions that have been percolating that I think cause a lot of the debate. There is a critique of identity politics from the right, which says identity doesn't matter. It's all about kind of rugged individualism, and there's to say that there are experiences that people have because of what they look like, how they identify, how the world interacts with them is silly or wrong, despite the fact that I think that doesn't accord with most people's lived experiences, right? You know that when you walk through the world wearing a space helmet on, that people are going to react to you like you're wearing a space helmet, and the same comes from other kinds of, more substantive identities. There's also this critique of weaponized identity, though, which is, I think, the critique that more often comes from the left, which says, the fact of somebody's identity might be a proxy for their beliefs or their politics, but is not determinative. Mm-hmm. And that particularly when we're looking at politicians and kind of picking our leadership, that it's important to keep both of those things in mind, to say, okay, representation has value, the lens has value, but the lens is a lens as opposed to kind of, like an eye patch or a blind or something that completely cuts off vision. I mean, how do you negotiate the balance between, I think, a genuine desire for representation and a desire also to have substantive politics that don't always map on to politicians who possess marginalized identities?
Yeah, I feel like my perspective on this was really shaped by where I came from in the Bronx, because it took so much effort in my community to get people to even vote, because they have been burned so many times, and they've been burned by politicians that look like them. And so in the Bronx, there's just this idea, that is just like, it really doesn't matter. And there's all of this cynicism that resulted from electing people, that ethnically matched the community, but once they got into power, advanced the same agenda that was marginalizing the community to begin with. And so there was a lot of cynicism about that. And the thing that creates hope about the situation is the joining of the two things, is that you can have someone from the community that understands the experience actually advocate for the policies and the positions that can change our future. So they're not, separable things. I don't think that I truly do not believe that if I ran on a platform that was more moderate, I would not have won my election. I wouldn't have. And thanks. And because it has to be not just a superficial alternative or something that looks different. It has to be something that actually is different. And it has to be different on many levels. Yes, it's different in my identity, and my identity and my experiences with my community inform and add, a different perspective to the positions that I hold and to the policy that I hold, because it goes the other way, because you can't have just a progressive position like Medicare for all without an understanding of race, because then you do get back to that position that you were talking about earlier, where communities say, oh, this isn't for me. This is for somebody else. People aren't thinking about me when you're drafting this plan. And because you aren't thinking about me, then when it gets implemented, we're going to get left behind again. And it's going to be a benefit for somebody else. And so to be able to articulate both of these things, both of these arguments at once, to be able to talk about how criminal justice reform, or rather like the war on drugs, was an economic agenda, it educates people. And that's really what we need. We really just need to be educating ourselves right now about how we've gotten to this place.
Well, I would love to keep asking.
Okay, so that's the end of that little thing. Her answer is really incredible. She talks about a way of tying identity politics and leftist policies, like some of the ones she just mentioned, like ending the war on drugs, and how that was an economic policy, but how it's also related to criminal justice reform, which impacts communities of color. Yes, this is what we need. We need an education. We need people that are going to tie things together, bridge the gap. Because really, I like the left is just huge. And I'm even talking about my side of the left. And I'm obviously, as you can tell, white. I'm white. I am woman. I'm a woman. I'm woman. Hear me word. Oh my God, I'm tired. I am a woman. So clearly you can see that I might have a little bit of blind spots here. But I do think that in implementing progressive policies, or being more progressive policies, you have to think about all the communities that it would impact and see how people feel about it, and lecture them on it, and educate them about it. Talk to them about why this would help them and how, and all of the above. So that's really, we need more leaders like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who are able to do this, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how things would help everyone and how these policies tie both ends of the aisle together. And I mean the entire left, or the entire left in this case. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys for subscribing to the Inform Forum on YouTube. And that's really about it. Anyway, I'm going to go and have breakfast and drink water and enjoy my day off. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.